after 30 plus profits, I realized, why am I working here? I'm losing money working here. I own real estate that works for me. It is more risky to work for somebody else who has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. It's so much less risky if I put my life into my own hands and I make businesses that own real estate that make me money. Stop being an investor, be a business owner.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Indie Investor Podcast, and I got Dustin Heiner on the podcast with me today. What's going on, Dustin?
What's up, Brett? Thank you so much for having me on the show. Now, this is exciting. I love talking to other people who are making money outside of working for somebody else. And, you know, I'm a real estate investor. I quit my job. I call it a JOB because you're living just over broke when you're working for somebody else. And because I invest in real estate, now I just go to the gym, hang out with my family, come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yes, no, definitely. I'm super excited, Dustin. We just talking, and it's awesome because when I read your bio and profile, it sounds like you are a very, very busy guy, but I know you live this balanced life. I know your wife and you are homeschooling your 5 kids, and you're coaching, you're, doing this conference. You have a podcast called the Master Passive Income Podcast, and courses, books, you name it. You're teaching and coaching other people how to do this business. And I just like to start off with you, man. So I know, take yourself years back. I think it was around 2006 or so. Something happened in your life that just kind of shoved you into real estate investment. Where were you at before? And then what prompted you to really go all in the real estate world?
Yeah. So you are hit the nail on the head. There's something that shoved me into real estate investing. So we are all taught. So I was taught this. Everybody's taught the same thing. You go to school, you get good grades. Then you take those good grades and you go to college, university, and get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt and to get a piece of paper that you will hopefully be able to get with that degree a quote unquote job or a career someplace and work 40 plus years of your life and then retire with and hopefully live on 40% of what you saved that entire time working a just over broke job. So I'm doing that exact same thing. I get the most stable, secure job you could ever think of. I was working in California at a local county government doing technology, most risk averse job ever. And California's not going away. Technology definitely, and government is definitely not going away. So I'm doing that exact same thing, but I bought one rental property. And with that one rental property, I started making money in passive income. And I realized this is the route to go. I bought one property and that property works for me. And if I do it right, I can continually make passive income. But right, you know what happens? Life starts getting in the way. My wife and I started having children, one after another. Eventually, when we had our 4th child, this is really this is the catalyst. This was what shoved me into investing full time. I went on paternity leave from my job when my wife had her 4th child. And so, paternity leave is where you stay home with the mom, change poopy diapers and bond with the baby and all that good stuff. So I'm doing that. And then I get back to work 2 weeks later. And on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, on the same week I get back to work, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? And I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. And I thought, why in the world did they call me to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. Well, I also thought about 2 months prior, before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors, there was some rumbling going on in the county that there could potentially be layoffs. I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way. I've got so much seniority. I get raises all the time. I get high marks on everything I do from my bosses. So I shook it off. Well, I get up and I go down the hallway to my boss's office. Well, Brett, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the thought of potentially losing my job was starting to weigh down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. And she says, Dustin, please have a seat. And she's kind of sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I take my seat and I start thinking about my life. If I get laid off right now, did I just waste my entire life, that plan that everybody's taught me? Did I just waste my life? And then I thought, oh my goodness, we just had our 4th child. How am I going to feed my family? Am I a failure as a father? Am I a failure as a man, a husband trying to provide for his family? Well, the door to my boss's office opens up and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying. You could tell Her world has just been devastated. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come to office? So I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember,
Mm.
this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off in the government, but I did. And this is the
Right.
reason why I tell this story. So I take that layoff notice and I go back and I sit down at my desk and I realize two things sitting there. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to find another way to make money for my family. So I was really blessed. Praise the Lord. I found another job in the same county, another department, wasn't having the issues. So check, got that. Then sitting in my desk, just getting laid off, the second thing I realized, I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure
Mm.
that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I started, I realized anytime anybody would ask me the question, Dustin, what do you do? We all get that question. We all normally respond, here's my job. This is my job. And when we do
Mhm.
that, we're basically projecting out to the world that our value that we put on ourselves comes from our job. Now, I don't have that any longer. Now, I realize that my value comes from my God, from myself, and from my family. So, right then
Mhm.
and there, I started telling everybody I am an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job, my job. I am now a full-time investor with a part-time job. I'm a full-time
Mm.
investor. So fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me 300, 400, 500, 600. Now my properties are making me $1,000 or more in passive income because I started back in 2006. And after 30 plus properties, I realized, why am I working here? I'm losing money working here. So the last part of the story, went to my new boss, good boss and all. And I said, hey, I'm laying you off, jokingly. We both laughed and he said, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that works for me. So the last part of the story, I would walk to and from my job every single day to my car about a mile and a half each way. I've done this 1,000 times. This
Mhm.
last time, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I
Mm.
knew I would never, ever need a job again. As opposed to that time I walked down the hallway where my feet were like lead bricks, I was floating on air. And everybody, listen to this. You need to realize that nobody can pay you what you're worth. In fact, you are worth so much more than anybody can ever pay you. And this is how you'll know your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without
Mhm.
quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of your pocket. If they paid you what you're worth, they would go broke. So instead,
For
what
sure.
I did was I said it is more risky to work for somebody else who has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. It's so much less risky if I put my life into my own hands and I make businesses that own real estate that make me money. One last quick thing I'll say is that even though I'm an investor, what it comes down to is I stopped being an investor and I started being a business owner. We can dive into that. But what it happened was I bought my first property. After I got my second property, my property manager started stealing from me because I didn't know what I was doing. I was acting just like an investor. So now I tell everybody, stop being an investor, be a business owner. So I'll pause the
Mm.
story because you probably got plenty of questions.
I do. I do. Number one, thank you so much for sharing that story. I think so many of us can just relate. It took a lot of guts, took a lot of courage, just to walk away, right? And you're right. I mean, typically, if you have a job, they're paying you just enough. Maybe wearing those golden handcuffs, where it's very difficult to walk away because how am I going to replace this? Whatever income fill in the blank it is with this. And it sounds like you just had this mindset shift, this identity type of shift. I know we're both, Christ followers too. And we talk a lot about identity in that world, but even in the business world, there's this identity shift. People, again, first question you typically ask another man is, hey, so what do you do? What is your identity typically? And they spit back typically what their career is or what their job is. And so we put so much emphasis on identity. You had this identity shift where it went from, no, I'm not a government worker. I'm an investor. I'm a business owner. And that just kind of changed everything for you. Wouldn't you say, like, just that whole mindset shift? And talk to us about, even from the investor to the business owner. I mean, what is that kind of shift? And what's
Yeah,
what's kind of the difference between those two things?
absolutely. So it all started with my mindset. And even now, I'm growing in my own personal mindset of limitations that I put on myself or that I've experiences that I've had that have affected me and limited me from moving forward. So the first time my mindset shift was we are all taught that you need to get active income. You work an hour, you get paid for that hour. You're basically selling your most precious commodity you will ever have is your time. You're selling your time because you can't make any more, earn any more, create any more time. Well, you're selling your time to somebody else so that they can make money off of you. That's literally how it works out. Then I realized there's something different. It's called passive income, or working one time and trying to get paid over and over and over again. That's why I created Master Passive Income, because I realized when I bought one property, it was so great. I thought when I got my first check, I've mastered passive income. My property works for me. I don't do a thing. And then I thought, after I started coaching people, I want to help other people master passive income by showing them how to invest in real estate. So fast forward, I got all that stuff now, from coaching to conferences and stuff. But what I realized was not necessarily identity, it was more of how I thought. Now, the
Mhm.
identity shift definitely helped change what I thought, but it was my thoughts first, that I got rid of my limiting beliefs on myself. I got more of an abundance mindset of how I can serve people. Because if I buy real estate that is not going to serve anybody, nobody's going to want to live there. But if I
Right.
buy a property that actually serves people well, they're going to want to live there, and we're going to both win. Instead of, I used to think it was a win lose in any business transaction, win lose. No,
Mhm.
what it should be is a win-win. And then if you do it right, it should be a win-win-win where everybody wins, because there's so much more to go around. So I personally am getting to the idea that I am no longer an investor. I'm a business owner. Let me quickly dive into that really quick. So being an investor, I went to one of those gurus. Actually, I'll just say it. It's also coming out right now. Robert Kiyosaki wrote a great book, but it wasn't him. It seems like it was Sharon Lecter that wrote the book, which blew
Mhm.
my mind. I was like, really? So I went to one of his seminars and I got taken for a lot of money. And I didn't
Mm.
have that much money when I first got started. Then I realized that that was a limitation on my brain, was like, money is scarce. I can't lose it. Then that mindset shift now was, instead of being an investor, because when I took what I was taught at that guru seminar, my property manager started stealing from me the 6 months because I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm.
Being a quote unquote investor, this is what they tell you. And I'll tell you, and I'll have you quickly forget it because I'll tell you the right way to do it. They said, find a property anywhere in the country, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, and then find a tenant and then find a property manager. Well, I did that. And my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months
Mm.
because I didn't know what I was doing. Then, if I would have just hung my head and say, it doesn't work, I wouldn't be here today. 30 plus properties, apartment complexes, hotels. Now I realized an investor is not what I am. I'm a business owner. So forget all that quick thing that I just told you the wrong way. Here's the right way. I decided to go back to my roots. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And so I started many businesses, and I said, let me approach my real estate investing as a business owner. Being an investor lost me money. When I
Mhm.
became a business owner, here's what it looks like. You build the entire business first, and then you buy the properties. Give you a quick analogy. If you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all the good stuff, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. No, you wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. What you
Mhm.
would do, though, is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas; those are shelving units. All the candy bars go on. The cold storage, countertops, cash registers, bank accounts, insurance, employees, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. We build the entire business, find the right people that are going to work in our business, and then our properties. That is our inventory. A lot of people, the gurus will tell you, you buy a property and that property is your business. No, no, no.
Mhm.
You are a business owner who invests in things. Now, what you do is you build that business, you hire experts that are going to make sure you do it right. Then the expert's going to make sure you're buying the right property. I don't buy a property unless my property manager tells me, yes, I will manage it. And this is how much you could rent it for. This is the vacancy factor. In the end, what I've seen, what happened to me and countless others. In fact, I coached, I don't know, thousands of students now, that some of them come to me and say, Dustin, I bought a house and followed those gurus. And then I tried to find a property manager. And they said, no, I will not manage the property because they'll get shot there. Like, well, you
Mhm.
no longer have an asset. You have a liability now. How much
Mm.
better, instead of buying the property, then trying to find the people that are going to manage it and take care of the property, you first build the business, and you then, when you find a property, you call up, hey, property manager. Instead of, I bought this property, you say, I'm looking to buy this property. How much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor? Will you manage it? What's the clientele like? Tell me about the property. If they say no, you don't buy it and waste the time and money. Instead, if they say yes, then you have accurate expert information because they're the ones that live in the area. They're the ones that manage other properties in the area. They're going to be the ones making sure you do it right. So hopefully that helps you understand switching from being an investor to now being a business owner. That is how we then scale the business. Because if you're a mom and pop, meaning, let's say if you have 5 properties, you're trying to manage it yourself, you only have so much time. You're very limited in time. I suggest getting the other people to do the work for you. What people ask me said, Dustin, how do you afford a property manager? I say, I don't. I'll say it this way. I don't pay my mortgage on any of my properties. I don't pay my property manager, taxes, insurance, repairs. I don't pay any of that stuff. Like, I don't have to get a job to pay for those things. I make sure that's accounted for. Remember, it's a business. All those
Right.
expenses are accounted for before I buy a property. And then I also make passive income on top of that. I suggest $300, $400, $500 a month in passive income on top of all expenses, and your property manager is included. So if you switch it from being an investor to being a business owner that owns inventory, you're like, literally, you're going to be able to scale. It's going to be easier, where now you've mastered passive income because other people are doing the work for you. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I love that. You're kind of building the team, you're building the tools. And I feel like a lot of us, I mean, I've owned a business for years, and hard knocks life, and and we try to build it along the way. We have, and try to do all these processes and systems later. And I think a lot of that's what you're talking about as a business owner. It's a lot about, building out a system, building out a process, building out teams. They don't have to be employees, but the property managers are part of your team, or the contractors, and just kind of thinking about all that rather than an investor, which in my mind, I kind of got out of like the stock market or an Edward Jones type of feel, where like, here's my money. Can you make do something with it? And that's more the investor feel, where the business owner, you're putting the pieces together. Like, you're not doing it, but you bring the people you want in your business, and the right teams and the right tools and right resources. So I think that totally makes sense. And that's a hard mind shift. And I think most of us don't do that, honestly. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that you talked about. I mean, most of the time it's just like, oh, I bought a house. Now what do I do? Basically. And so let's talk about that a little bit. So you work with many investors and business owners that own rental properties. Like, what are some of the other mistakes that you're
Oh,
seeing out there?
I have a very big one. And it keeps going down the line of, if you have a business, you're going to do certain things differently than if you call yourself a quote unquote investor. So if you have a business, you're going to make sure you're making money every single month. Let me give you an example. Let's say you can buy a candy bar for 50 cents, and you knew all day, every day, you can sell it every single time for $1. You'd be thinking, man, I'll make 50 cents every single time I buy a candy bar, I'll sell it for 50 cents. Well, you would
Typically,
not.
the way my mindset would be like, how many candy bars can I buy?
100% right. How many candy bars can I buy? Because I could just keep scaling it up from there.
Right.
But you would not buy it for $2 if you could only sell it for $1. You go
Right.
out of business, you go broke. Why would you do that business? Same thing with real estate investing. You do not buy a property unless it makes you money in passive income. I suggest a minimum of $300 or $400 a month in passive income, long-term rentals. We can do midterm, where it's 30, 60, 90 days. You make more money in total. You have a little more turnover. There's short-term as well, more turnover, but you make more money. There's more expenses. There's even co-living, where we rent out per rooms. These are all ways to make money. But the biggest thing that I see is people mess up when they do not account for their passive income, their revenue from the very beginning. Now, here's exactly what you said. How can I buy more candy bars? Let's say, and this is the beautiful thing about real estate investing, you can buy a candy bar for 50 cents, sell it for $1. But what if you didn't even have 50 cents? This is like real estate investing. What if it cost you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents while you're out of pocket 75 cents? You still pocket 25 cents every single time you sold a candy bar. You say, how can I borrow more money? Because I can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with real estate investing. That's how we scale our business, is we account for that expense of the money and the management and the taxes and the insurance and the mortgage, everything. And we still make money on top of it. One quick last thing
Yeah.
I'll say, we make sure our income, like my passive income, I've got 30 plus properties now, hotels, apartment complex. We just bought a 355 unit apartment complex near Nashville. I make sure that I have my income, my passive income as an expense. You might be thinking, well, it's an income. How is it an expense? Here's the way it works out. You calculate all your other expenses, property management, taxes, insurance, mortgage, repairs, vacancy factor. You add up all of those types of expenses. And then here's the key. If you need to make $300 from this one property in a long-term rent, that's an expense. You put a $300 line item that, say, maybe it's to pay your boss, which is your spouse or your kids. Just keep that like in your mind. It's used to provide for yourself and your family. And so you add that as an expense line item. Then you're not going to wonder, oh my goodness, how am I going to like how much money I'm going to make? No, we put that in before we buy the property. One quick last thing. I just thought of this. Some people say, well, Dustin, how do I get that passive income? Prices are so high, insurance or interest is so high, insurance is high, all that sort of stuff. What it comes down to, you make your money when you buy the property. And so if you're looking at your income, okay, I could buy it for this. Here are all my expenses. And then my income is so small because I can only rent it for, let's say, $1,500 and my expenses are $1,400. Well, meaning you're only gonna make $100. That's not necessarily enough. What if instead you got the price lower, which lowers your mortgage payment, which lowers your taxes, with hopefully it lowers your interest. So you buy the property for a lesser price. And you might think, well, how do you do that? Well, you put in offers, lots of offers, and you negotiate. So when you look at it as a business, just like a candy bar, if they're selling a candy bar for 75 cents, like I can only afford 50, you keep working until you find a seller or a wholesaler that has those candy bars for 50 cents. Same thing. You try to make sure that you find a seller that has a property that's going to be able to make you money. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. No, I love that. And one thing I love is, you talked about you're borrowing money and you're paying off this mortgage, especially if you have rental properties. And then every single month that mortgage goes down a little bit, right? Your loan goes down, maybe $100, $200, $300, whatever it is. So,
Well, your tenants are
but
paying for that.
yeah, the tenants are paying for that. Yeah. But the property typically doesn't go down in value. So typically like your net worth is just increasing a little bit each month, sometimes even more if the property appreciates, right? Which we didn't even talk about. So that's awesome. Hey guys, this is Brett Snodgrass with Simple Quarters. I want to let you know that you can earn passive income with a company that you can trust. If you're looking for a safe and reliable way to earn a fair return on your hard-earned money, at Simple Quarters, we make it easy for you to invest passively. No work, no hassle, just steady returns. You don't have to buy a house. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to hire a team or hire contractors. You really just want to earn a return on your investment. Then I would love to chat with you. We have a proven track record with great references. Your money should be working for you. And with Simple Quarters, you can invest confidently with a team that delivers results. You can email me at brett@simplequarters.com. You can check out our website, simplequarters.com. You can even text me on my local cell phone number at 812-216-8602. 812-216-8602. Again, I'm talking about earning an extremely passive income with a trusted company. Email me or text me today. Let's chat soon. Let's talk about financing a little bit. So you talked about, we can borrow some money. How do you, when you first got started, so that's just trips up some people. Like, how do I borrow whatever, $100,000, $200,000? You talk about creative financing ways too. Can you hit on that a little bit?
So when I bought my first property, I didn't have any money. And the only thing I knew, just like everybody, you find a mortgage broker and you find a realtor and you put them together, you buy a house. That's the only thing I knew because I didn't know all these other ways. Now I've literally done 20 different ways to get financing to buy a property. When you talk about creative financing, it's creatively finding a way to get money to buy a property. Let me give you a quick example. So one of my students, his name's Benjamin. He is a pastor up in Sacramento, California. Pastors don't make money. Plus it's California and Sacramento. So it's a lot of really expensive, but he did buy a house. He didn't have any money, but he did buy a house about 2014. As I was coaching him, he said, hey, do you have any equity in your house? I know you don't have the 401k, you don't have retirement, you don't have any savings because you just don't have any money as a pastor. I said, well, yeah. So we probably have about $250,000 in equity in that property. I said, perfect. This is what we'll do. We'll get a home equity line of credit. We're not going to refinance it because you still got a really low rate. Mm-hmm. We're going to get a home equity line of credit that you're going to basically think of like a credit card. If you don't have any borrowed, you're not going to pay any interest. So here's what we did. We took that home equity line of credit. I think he took about $100,000, bought a house in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. He bought a house and then got it fixed up, then got it rented, and then started making passive income, and then refinanced that property. Remember, this new property he bought did not have a mortgage on it. It was free and clear. Now, his other property, you might be thinking, or his primary residence, you might be thinking, well, that income went up, or that expense went up. It was costing more. Well, you don't buy the property unless that property pays for that increase in your mortgage on your, the home equity line of credit. But here's the great thing. He bought this property, refinanced it, pulled the cash back out, paid off his home equity line of credit. And I think because he bought it well, he captured, we love negotiating. So we usually try to capture equity when we buy it, which means, let's say it's $150,000. We buy it for like 120. We capture $30,000 in equity. So what he did was he refinanced the property, pulled out like an extra $10,000 on top of paying off his home equity line of credit. So he had $10,000 extra. He still had the home equity line of credit to do it over again, and has been building his business that way. This is just one of literally 20 different ways that I've used private money, hard money, commercial loans, portfolio loans, bundle loans. I don't want to confuse everybody or get people too much. As long as you have knowledge of all the different ways out there, or if you have somebody that has done it before, they're going to walk you through it. In fact, all my students, they say, Dustin, I don't have any money. I said, that's not the problem. Money is not the problem. Money's out there. What you need to do is you need to build a business, because then you're going to get the right properties. And then people are going to see you as seeing, man, this person can invest. Let me now have my money work with them. So that's what I think is, if you think money's a problem, it's absolutely not the problem.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I think it just goes back to building your business, building your team. I mean, typically a lender could be a private lender, could be a bank, could be a hard money lender. It's just part of your team, just like a property management company would be. And I just think that's just part of the equation that a lot of people don't think a lot about. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that real estate investors do. And I've even done it too. We don't spend enough time possibly networking and looking for money with whether it be banks, hard money lenders, or especially private lenders, which is typically what I go with. Dustin, final question as we wrap up the show here. So again, coached probably 1,000 people in your master passive income courses and your conferences, the Wealth Builders Conference. And what do you think is the most common trait of successful real estate investors versus people that struggle? Because I've met plenty of both. So
I think the most common trait is they're problem solvers. That's really what it comes down to. It's a learned skill. It's not something that people are innately born with. You look at whatever problem is in your way. Let's say I don't have any properties. I don't have any deals coming my way. Well, you figure out a way around that. We solve that problem. You might be thinking, I don't have any money. Well, you figure out a way to do that. You might be thinking, I don't have any experience. I'm going to do it all wrong. Well, you problem solve your way out of that. You might be also, let's say you bought a property and you get stuck where you have a property that nobody wants to manage because they said they'll get shot there. We figured out, okay, here's a problem. Let's figure out a way around that. What I've done in an area, when I first got started in 2006, I invested in an area that nobody wants to manage. But what I've done, remember, it's a problem solver. Like, okay, what else? And I'm thinking of ideas. I came up with seller financing or a rent to own. This is people that have said they'll be so happy. Like, they can't buy a house on their own. So they're so happy to become a owner, but they're paying me as I'm the bank. So that's rent to own. Eventually they're going to buy the property. You just have to be a problem solver. When you do that, you'll realize that there's nothing stopping you, because somebody has either figured out how to fix that, whatever problem it is, or you get around people who have already done these sort of things. That's what I love about coaching is I've done almost, I'd say probably about everything you could probably do in investing. And I give my students all the options that are out there, because I don't want to tell them, do this, X, Y, and Z. No, what I do is I teach them principles, and then I show them the options that are out there, 10, 15, 20 different options, and then show them the outcome of each one, because I've done it or I've coached somebody else. We know the options and what's going to happen. And then the students figure out what's their risk tolerance, what's their goals, what's their financial constraints, all those sort of things, and they make the best decision. The only thing I've ever done to students in telling them what to do is I've actually told them twice. I said to a student, do not buy this property. I would not buy that, because usually I'll just say, well, I'd buy that property. In fact, one of my students, after 3 or 4 times, him coming back and saying, what about this property? What about this property? I said, this is another Benjamin, Ben. I said, Ben, the totally different one. Ben, buy this property or give it to me. I'm going to buy it. And he said, this is his first property. He's like, oh, well, Dustin's going to buy it. I better buy it. And then now he's got 20 plus properties. So he's just
Wow.
grown from there. But in the end, what it comes down to is having somebody that's going to be helping you along the path to give you all the options. Because in the end, your options are going to help you to be proactive instead
Mhm.
of reactive. Reactive lose you money. Proactive makes you money.
No, I love that. I love that. Now, so many great nuggets, guys. So many great tips. And then I'd said that that was the last question, but I actually got one more. And so I've been doing this business 18 years. Got into it around 2007, around the same time you did. And I've seen a lot of people come and go. A lot of people that have had very successful businesses, and then kaplooey, went bankrupt, lost it all, just things like that, even in the last few years. And so sustainable wealth versus just chasing that rich maybe, or that chasing that cash flow. You talked about cash flow, but like, how do you sustain this? Because I don't know, I've seen so many people, maybe they get greedy, maybe they make mistakes along the way. They've been doing this for years. They learn how to do it, but then they end up going under.
So I
Any advice on
started
that?
Yeah, I started the same exact time as you, 2006, 2007. And I was concerned in 2008 when the crash happened. I saw so many real estate investors go, quote unquote, real estate investors go broke, went bankrupt because they were listening to what the gurus is telling you. They were telling me and telling everybody, don't worry about the income. You're going to get appreciation. That's what you're going to invest for. I
Right.
didn't want appreciation. It's great. It's icing on the cake. It's don't understand me wrong. I think it's great, but it's a bonus. I wanted
Hmm.
to feed my family. I could not feed my family with appreciation. So I solely invested for cash flow. And
Hmm.
then, like the flippers, they went bankrupt. The people who were investing for appreciation, speculating, they went bankrupt. So many people went bankrupt. I actually made more money. And the reason why, sadly, if there's ever a problem in the economy, sadly, people are going to lose their job and sadly, they're going to foreclose on their home, but they have to live somewhere. So, what is a pool of tenants and renters that increases? So, demand goes up, supply is still relatively the same. I'll buy more, lots and lots of more properties, but I made more money. My rents went up
Yeah.
because there were so many more people that needed rent or a rental. And so, that's how we do longevity and sustain it is I never sell anymore. I've sold some properties. Every time I've sold it, I rich, oh, I wish I never sold it. Now, I will never sell because I have 5 kids. I will literally give these properties to my kids so that they can have in generational wealth, a lot of benefits we don't want to get to, like stepped up basis and all that sort of stuff. But in the end, it makes me money. And if you want to sell your property to get access to that cash, why do that? Refinance it. In fact, I
Mhm.
have 7 properties, they're free and clear. I want to buy more properties, so I'm taking out a loan on all 7, bundle those properties together, pulling out I think 6 or $700,000,
Mhm.
and my mortgage payment's going to be $300, sorry, $3,000 for all that money. Then I'm
Mhm.
going to use that $700,000 and buy at least 10 more properties with that I'll be making at least $1,200, $1,300 per property. So remember, $3,000 mortgage. I'm going to buy 7, maybe 10 properties, depending how I'll do it, and I'll be making at least 10 grand in the end
Mhm.
from that $3,000. So there's just
Right.
so many options. If you do it right, if you have the right people around you, if you have the experts that are helping you, you're going to be successful. And that's in the end, I'm giving these properties to my kids in generational wealth.
No, so good, Dustin. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the Indie Investor Podcast. I want to give you an opportunity. Again, I know you have a website, podcast, your conference. Where can someone go to find more information about what you're teaching out there in coaching?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I have a real estate investor course, a free course I'd love to give away. Do you mind if I share that?
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
that'd be great.
So my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. I make my money through real estate. So this is just a way for me to have impact to help others. I get fulfilled when I help others. So if you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, or you can go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word /free course. I'll give you my course that people have literally just invested in real estate just from this course. So finding how to at an area anywhere in the country, out of state, how to make sure you're building the business first, cash flowing to where you can scale to quit your job and hopefully become financially independent. You can even find me like the Master Passive Income podcast. It's mainly just a solo show, me just teaching I've been doing this since 2016 is when I first started doing this. And it's just a way to share everybody how to do this. So find Master Passive Income. In fact, I'll have to brag just a little bit on Apple Podcast. If you search real estate investing, I'm number one. I'm number one.
Wow.
And if you search for real estate, so I just found
That's
that out
cool.
recently. One quick last thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, one quick last thing. You can find me on Instagram. I actually enjoy Instagram. I get DMs all the time. You can find me, the Dustin Heiner, Dustin Heiner. You can find me, reach out to me. I just give out loads and loads of information on how to invest in real estate because all is a means to an end to help you to invest in real estate.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. We're going to put that all in our show notes, guys, and our YouTube channels. Make sure you check that out. And that's a wrap. So thank you so much, Dustin, for being on the podcast today. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, Brett.